بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Okay, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, nice to meet you again in our fourth lecture in the Introduction to American Literature course. Okay, today's lecture will not be that long as the previous one. And today's lecture, as you see from the title on the first slide, it's about realism. And you know, this is the third part of the American literature, as we said in the first lecture. So we started with the colonial period, colonialism, and then last time, part 2, we discussed romanticism, and today we discuss the third part of the American literature that is called realism. And realism, as you know, as its name says, okay, it's from real and realism. Talking about reality, okay. And here we are concerned about realism as a literary movement. Okay, as a literary movement, it started in the United States, early 20th century. In different types of arts, اللي هو music and literature, and in different kinds of arts. And this type of literature of this movement showed through these different types of works, اللي هو art, music, literature, and it was sort of a reflection to the time of the period of the United States, of America. So, and the movement here, or the major characteristic of this movement, is just to reflect reality as is, to reflect, to show, to depict, okay, to picture reality as is. Okay, these images and the works, of literature, music, and painting pictured, showed a contemporary view of what was happening. Okay, showed a contemporary view, contemporary modern picture of what was happening, in the States. And it's just, simply speaking, realism is an attempt at defining what was real. Okay, so it's an attempt to show what was real. And next, اللي هو realism in the United States or in America from اللي هو 19th the 19th century, from 1860 to 1890. In American literature, the term realism includes the period of time from the Civil War to the turn of the century, during which William Dean Howells, Rebecca Harding Davis, Henry James, Mark Twain, and others wrote fiction devoted to accurate representation and an exploration of American lives in various contexts. Okay, so the term realism as a movement includes the period from the Civil War. Civil War we talked about, in lecture number 1, the Civil War that happened in the United States, in the 19th century. Okay, and it was the type of war that happened between people in the North and people in the South. People in the North representing the industrial side, and people in the South representing the agricultural type of life and type of people. Okay, and then of course the war did not end with in winning, with the winning of the people in the North, and that was a reason to put an end to the slavery in the United States. So that was as a result of the Civil War. So the movement, realism, includes the period from the Civil War, okay, to the turn of the century, okay, when these famous writers started writing their fictions, and they were representing and exploring, American various types of lives, and, writing different contexts. As the United States grew rapidly after the Civil War, okay, after the Civil War, that was, we'll see, the beginning of a rapid, quick development in the United States. The increasing rates of democracy and literacy, the rapid growth in industrialism and urbanization, and an expanding population base due to immigration, and a relative rise in middle class affluence, okay, provided a fertile literary environment for readers interested in understanding these rapid shifts in culture. In drawing attention to this connection, we have Amy Kaplan has called realism strategy for imagining and managing the threats of social change. Okay, this is by Amy Kaplan, who called realism as strategy for imagining and managing the threats of social change. Okay, so here we talk about realism as a movement that represented the various types of lives and sides of lives in the United States, and during that period of time, along with this movement, the United States developed a lot in different parts of the life, and in terms of industrialization and urbanization, and an increase in population because of the immigration. Realism as a movement, was that the one that encompassed the entire country. It represented the entire country, or at least the Midwest and South. Although many of the writers and critics associated with realism, notably, we have what? W. Howells, okay, were based in New England. So this is important. So most of the writers who represented realism were, based in New England, lived in New England, and the most notably one is what? W.H. Howells. So this is to be remembered, okay, this note with this name. Among the Midwestern writers considered realist would be Joseph Kirkland, E.W. Howe, and Hamlin Garland. Okay, this is from Midwest. And then from the southern part of the United States, writers, we have the writer who is called John W. DeForest with his work Miss Ravenel's Conversation from Secession to Loyalty is often considered a realist novel. Okay, John W. DeForest's novel, okay, is considered to be a realist novel that is called, Miss Ravenel's Conversation from secession to loyalty. اللي هو secession اللي هو to be away from, okay, to be separated, okay. So here we have about two or three notes that are important for you, and you need to remember these notes. اللي هو again that realism as a movement encompassed, okay, or included the whole country of the United States and more in the Midwest and South, okay. And then we have writers who are very notable and very much considered our good representatives of realism. We have W.H. Howells, okay, from the who was based in New England. So most of the, I would say, most of the writers were based in New England. So, and we have here W.H. Howley is one of them, and then other writers like Joseph Kirkland, from the Mid-West, and then Joseph Kirkland and E.W. Howe, okay, and Hamlin Garland. From the South, we have Joe W. DeForest with his novel as an example of a realism work, which is called, Miss Ravenel's Conversation from Secession to Loyalty. Next is American realism. Again, what is it and how is it described? So this is sort of also a repetition of what has already been said. Like the terms relating to literary movements, the term is loose and somewhat equivocal. Equivocal means not that clear, not that precise. Equivocal, okay? Equivocal, not clear, not precise. Okay, like other, many other terms, literary terms. There isn't always just one precise, okay, definite definition for each term. Sometimes, these definitions, go loose, not clear, not exact. American realism began as a reaction to and rejection of Romanticism. So this is also to be remembered, important. So realism, okay, began and started as a reaction, okay, as a reaction or sort of, movement that, started as a rejection, okay, a movement against Romanticism, with its emphasis on emotion, اللي هو realism, with its emphasis in emotion, imagination, and the individual himself or herself. Okay, the movement began as early as the 1830s, قلنا اللي هو 19th century, but reached prominence and held sway, okay, dominating, from the end, or being more notable from the end of the Civil War to around the end of the 19th century. The movement was centered in fiction, particularly the novel. There were different types of works that, that include realism. Our realism, includes different types of works and different types of arts, but, it was more concentrated or more centered in fiction, اللي هو particularly the novel, rather than other types of arts. Realism attempted, fidelity to real life, okay, to show fidelity, loyalty, okay, loyalty, faithfulness, okay, to real life or actuality. This is also important because it gives a very brief definition to what is meant by realism. Okay, realism is a temptation, an attempt to fidelity to real life, loyal, okay, to real life, اللي هو ايش؟ actuality, real life, actual life, depicting, portraying, picturing, showing things as they are, okay, sort of just a mirror reflecting things the way they are in its representation. So actuality, real life, in its representation, they represent, real life, actual life. The realist concerns himself with the here and now, okay. Realist, okay, or realists and the writers of this movement, realism, what they are concerned with here, with the place where they live and with the time they live in. Okay, they don't give a lot of attention to other places and other periods of time. Okay, they are concerned with the reality, with actuality, with what is happening where you are. Okay, centering his work, اللي هو الريالist, centering his work in his own time, dealing with the commonplace everyday events and people. Okay, so they talk about and they are concerned with their own time and with the everyday life places, with real places where people live. Okay, and where people, you know, يعني with places that people know about, okay, and familiar with. Not talking about, you know, imaginary, you know, places, or, you know, places that are not common to the everyday life. Okay, and with the socio-political climate of his day, أو يعني اللي هو realist day. So the writing of the realists also, the writing was concerned with the socio-political climate of his day, and it deals with the political, you know, situation of the day of the people living in. Next page is also important, but I will not say that it's all important, but, you know, there are here different examples or representatives of realism, our realism movement. Here we have what you may also call realists. I'll just, you know, highlight, or let's say read the most important ones that you yourselves need to remember. At least, you know, we need to know the first one, Samuel Clemens, and with his example, fiction of his example. Here you have The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, Life on the Mississippi, Fenimore Cooper's Literary Offenses, and then the last one, Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. You know, this Connecticut, one of the states in the United States. Then you have Bert Harty, Ambrose Bierce. Then we have William Dean Howells fiction essays. Here we need also to remember this one, William Dean Howells. Then we have the first one, Samuel Clemens. 2, William Dean Howells with his fiction and with his essays. And here we have Modern Instances as one of the examples. Then I think this is an essay. The Rise of Silas Lapham, a fiction and novel. A Hazard of a New Fortunes. Okay. Then we have Henry James, but this is also important. Okay. A Modern Instance, I'm not sure, it could be a fiction or essay. Then Henry James with his fiction, Daisy Miller, Portrait of a Lady, and the American, The Turn of the Screw. Henry James is also important name in American fiction. Then we have Edith Wharton. This is not important. Then we have Kate Chopin with her fiction. Kate Chopin is very important, okay, because we have one of her stories is going to be discussed in this course. So Kate Chopin is important with one of her stories, The Awakening, and then there is the one we are going to study in this course, The Story of an Hour. Then next and last important of this list, George Washington Cable in his fiction, the Grandismisses, Old Serially Days. Okay, the Grandissimus, well, Old Creole Days. George Washington, and then let's just again emphasize the 3 or 4 names. Number 1 was Samuel Clemens with at least one example or 2 of his works. Number 2, William Dean Howells. 3, Henry James. 4, Kate Chopin. 5, George Washington, Grandissimus and Creole Days as examples of his fiction. Okay, these are the most important. Then we go to the next and last slide. And last slide is very important because it talks about the common themes and elements in realism. What was discussed and what what were the themes, the different themes of this movement, realism. Okay, here is a list and it's all important here. The list is all important. Number one, theme number one اللي هو البراغماتيزم. Okay, البراغماتيزم is another movement اللي هي يعني similar to realism اللي هو برضه بس اللي هو الاكسبيرمنتال اللي هو المذهب الواقعية أو العملي. Okay. Then we have a literature of the commonplace اللي هو realism is the literature of the commonplace because they talk about real places, places of everyday life, places that concern people and people know very well. Attempts to represent real life. Okay, this is also a very major theme and expresses and reflects the name of the movement. Attempts to represent real life. Ordinary people, poor and middle class. Okay, realism and realists. I mean or realistic writers or writers of realism. They usually depict. They show in their works ordinary people and usually poor and middle class people. Okay, this is part of the themes and elements of the of realism. Okay, and their characters are usually ordinary people and poor and middle class people. Then next اللي هو ordinary speech in dialect, use of vernacular. Okay, also in their writing they use the dialect of the people, the dialect that is used among people and known by people, which is usually هو use of vernacular اللي هي dialect اللي هو not vulgar but اللي هي dialect what is اللي هي العامية. Okay, vernacular اللي هي العامية اللغة العامية. Okay, so they use this type of dialect in their writing. And then recent or contemporary life, they talk about their time. Okay, because as we said previously that realism is concerned with the time of the people. Okay, and with the place everyday and everyday in the place of everyday life. So they are also concerned with the recent or contemporary life, not life of the past or ancient life of people. Then we have a subject matter presented in an unidealized, unsentimentalized way. Okay, subject matter presented in an unidealized, okay, unsentimentalized, not using not being very sentimental and not being very idealistic in what they talk about and what they present to people, not to be very idealistic. بمعنى انهم ما هم عاطفيين بتعابيرهم ولا هم كمان ايش مثاليين جدا. لا، هم بيكونوا they are just as ordinary as possible because they represent the real life of the real people of the common poor, okay, middle class people. So they are not sentimental and idealistic in what they represent to people. Then we have a democratic function of literature because they were free to express themselves and to express their thoughts freely because that was the beginning of having more freedom and democracy in the United States in general. Then we have also another theme اللي هو social criticism, effect on audience as a key. Okay, effect on audience which is the key, social criticism, trying to criticize, the social life of people to as an attempt to improve, okay, the life of people and making people to avoid, things that considered to be negative or things need to be criticized. Okay, present indigenous American life. Also in realism, writers, were able, and the one of the themes is to present the real, local, natural type of life of the Americans. And then important place, regionalism, local color, also depicting, picturing, showing the importance of the place where people live, the common places of everyday life. And then last is the sociology and psychology of the people of that period. Okay, our class is almost finished and comes to an end. I hope it's clearly discussed. Please, if you read it again and again, and if you have questions, please let me know. And remember that these lectures, up to maybe lecture 6 or 7, we'll continue covering the parts of American literature, and then maybe we start, real pieces of literature, of American literature, in lecture 8. So we'll start reading and analyzing pieces of it. Thank you very much, and see you very soon again in another lecture. Thanks a lot. Assalamu alaikum.